Hello and welcome back. Today I'm going to show you time-lapse pictures of my SPS and Acropora corals that have been growing in my reef tank for the past 2 years. Hey guys, so the tank is turning 2 years old, my Red Sea Reefer 250. It's a 65-gallon total volume system with a 55-gallon display and about a 10-gallon sump. I've been taking pictures of my Acropora and SPS corals since I added them to the tank. I take a picture once a month, sometimes every couple of weeks, and I'm going to show you coral by coral the progression of these photos so you could get an idea of growth. Obviously, growth is going to depend on many factors. Lighting is important, so please check out my video on how I light my tank. I'm running 3 Radion XR15s with the SPS AB Plus program. Also check out the video on flow, and check out the other videos on my tank to figure out what my water chemistry is. In general, my alkalinity is about 8, calcium 420, magnesium 1340, nitrates 5, phosphates around 0.2, 0.3. Alright, so let's get started. So I've organized the pictures from the fastest growing corals to the slowest. Let's have a look. So by far the fastest growing coral SPS in my tank is the ORA Birds of Paradise. It's a bird's nest coral. It's got these lovely green flesh and purple polyps. This thing is growing like a monster. I have it in the bottom of my tank getting about 140 par. And it's always happy. The polyps are always out. It's throughout all of the issues that I had with my water chemistry and nutrients, and really nothing phases this coral. It does really well, and right now it's getting to be to kind of like a size where I don't want it to get any bigger. So you'll notice that in the last few pictures that I've been aggressively fragging this coral just to make sure it stays in this kind of size. But great coral, really easy to take care of, and grows and fills up space really quickly. All right, another group of corals that I highly recommend for fast growth is the Encrusting Montipora. They're great for filling up space. This is the pink mystic. I got it as a small frag, and I put it in a couple places in my tank. I'm showing you on the right boulder. And in a span of about, I think, a year, this thing has literally covered up my entire boulder. Now, the good thing about the encrusting montes, like you see the pictures here, the good thing about the encrusting montes is they fill up space quickly, but when they touch the Acropora, they recede. So you don't have to worry about them killing your Acropora. I've started fragging this coral several months back. I also have several other varieties. I'm not going to show you all the pictures. So I have the MYSTIQUE Encrusting Montipora with green and blue polyps, and you can see that's a growth in about 6 months. I also have the Superman. This one, the Superman is growing well, but this colony got actually killed by a torch. You see the torch underneath it here. Another coral that has been growing really fast for me is the Christmas Montipora cap. So this is a plating coral. I have it on the bottom getting about 130 par, and it's actually been growing really well. I find that most people place the Montipora caps too high in the tank, and remember that these things grow really quickly and they plate out. And so if you have it high in your tank, once it starts plating, then it will shade and potentially kill all the corals that are underneath. So I've decided on purpose to keep it down low, so that way if it as you can see, starting to kind of really plate out now, and I've been heavily fragging this tank, but because I placed it in that boulder right here, even if it fills up all the space, it's not killing anything underneath. but definitely a really lovely coral. It grows really quickly, and again, very robust and sturdy. Okay, so far I've showed you a bird's nest and Montipora, and they grow really fast. But if you want a fast-growing Acropora, then the Reef Raft Mr. Pacman is very, very fast-growing. I got this as a small 1-inch frag, and it quickly branched out, and it's now one of the largest, probably the second largest Acropora colonies in my tank. I have it on the bottom, getting about maybe 150 par. So this is another good Acropora if you wanna put it in a place that doesn't need a lot of light. You know, you see it's on the sand bed, and despite the low par, it's been growing really well. And I managed to frag the squirrel several times. The color at the low par is the purples are not as intense as if you have them in higher lighting. But for me, you know, I still really enjoy looking at the shape of the coral. You can see now the colony is getting to be really big now, and it's got this very kind of wispy shape that I enjoy looking at the bottom of the tank. Okay. This is another fast-growing colony. So most of my Acroporas have started with 1-inch frag, except for this colony. And this colony, within about 6 months, I think it doubled in size. You could see all of the new growth on the left side of the coral. It actually got so big that it was shading a Monty underneath. That I've decided, you'll see somewhere here, that I've actually decided to cut the colony in half. And I cut the colony in half, and I fragged all the other half of the colony just to give some more light to the Montipora that's growing underneath. So that there it is, fragged like fresh cut, but very quickly it managed to recover. Then again, it's shooting out additional branches. Okay, one of my favorite but also fastest growing Acropora is my Mystery Tort. I think this is a Miyagi Tort. I call it electric Miyagi Tort just because the colors tend to be more intense than the typical Miyagi Torts I see in other people's tanks. So I got this as this ugly 1-inch frag. It was kind of devoid of any color. I put it up high. It's getting about 250, 300 par now. And I just started seeing these amazing collection of colors. The green base, and it transitions from pink to purple tips. The coral lights are blue, and the polyps are purple. And it's just been, you know, one of my favorite corals. It's just beautiful. I spend every day I kind of take off the top of my tank and just stare at this coral for a few minutes because it is just amazing. And you know, very quickly, this coral. So considering that this coral was one of the first frags that I put in my tank, right now it has what I think is a pretty nice size mature colony. It's a little bit bigger than it's about like the size of your fist, to give you some perspective. The color has changed a little bit. It seems like with more light, you lose some of the green fluorescent base, and you get more of the pink and purplish tones. So you'll notice that as the pictures progress over the past few months, I've been increasing par a little bit, and you see we're getting less of the green and more of the pink and the purple. All right, another fast-growing acro is my Blueberry Wine. Again, was added as a 1-inch frag in early 2016, and it started growing. And this coral growth, it's encrusting really well, but it's also growing upwards. It didn't for probably the longest time, for about a year. It kind of looked pretty pale. It didn't have the same intense blue coloration that I know that the coral had when I bought it as a frag. But I'm very happy to report that over the past 6 months or so, I'm seeing more of that nice intense blue color. But in terms of growth, it's been doing fantastic. It's in the top shelf, getting about 280 par right now, and the crown of the colony is getting taller, but also you see that it's encrusting and it's shooting out these mini branches. So I think I have like maybe 20 or 30 mini branches. So it'll be interesting to see how the colony, the shape of the colony looks like in a year or so. Okay guys, the next coral is a Reef Raft Pink Cadillac. I got this as a very tiny and very expensive frag, one of my most expensive frags. And I put it in the top shelf around the middle of the tank, and it's getting about 300 par. And it's actually grows pretty well for, for an expensive coral. You would think that'd be really slow growing, but certainly it's not the fastest acro, but it's not the slowest either. So midway through 2017, I actually surrounded the base with putty just to help it encrust out a little bit because it was just going upwards but wasn't encrusting. And that actually was a good trick, because after I added the putty, you'll see the putty coming in now. So I added the putty in November. Now notice how fast the colony starts encrusting now. So it's getting taller, but it's also encrusting really rapidly. And I thought it was overhyped, but the more that the colony matures, I'm starting to see some of that nice, lovely pink colors. The blue polyps are gorgeous, and the green base is coming out a little bit more. So definitely a very fun coral to have in your tank. All right, next coral is just your run-of-the-mill Acropora tenuis. I got that, I got this coral for really cheap. I didn't have space up top, so I put it on the bottom of my tank. It was getting about 150, 180 par. And I was surprised to see how well it actually is doing down there. So it goes to show you that not all Acropora need lots of intense light. So certainly for growth, this coral has been growing really well in about 180 par, which is pretty impressive. So you'll see it's encrusted really quickly, and it's shooting out some branches, and it's not stopping. It's just it's getting bigger and bigger. We started out with the one inch branch, and now we have maybe like 7 or 8 3-4 inch branches. So very happy with the growth of this coral, considering how little light it's getting. All right, next is a green slimer. This is kind of a funny coral. I had it one of the first corals I added to the tank. It was in a low spot, getting 200 par. It didn't do well here, so I moved it to a couple of places. Also, it lost its color during my water chemistry fluctuations, but ultimately I moved it to in the top shelf, but a little bit back from the lights. It's getting 250 par, and ever since I put it in that spot, it's actually been doing fantastic. It's been branching out and basing out, so it's both increasing in height and width. But most of the growth has actually been vertical, which is good, because you wanna see sticks out of the rock. So the next few pictures you'll really see the fast vertical growth. Although it's a little bit hard to judge it from here because we're looking from the top. But literally we went from having maybe an inch to 3-4 inches as the main branch, and several side branches that are 2 inches each. And the color is just amazing. It's green, but it's just very vibrant. All right, here's a new frag that I got. It was called an Aussi Rainbow Acropora. It's really interesting in that it looks like the Christmas Monty, but in Acropora form. So it's got this fluorescent green base and these really cool red polyps. And so this has just been in my tank for a little bit less than a year, but it's been encrusting really quickly, and it's been branching out as well. So looking forward to how this will grow. Another, the Bonsai Acropora VALIDA. Okay, this is a fun story about why you shouldn't give up on coral. So this is one of the first corals that I got in my tank. Before I was trying to figure out my lights, I put it up top. It started bleaching. I put it in the bottom. It started bleaching, not bleaching, but browning out. I moved it, and every time I would move it, it would look good for like a few weeks, and then it would start browning out and looking really yucky. And it actually did start at the end, so that it started dying from the base. So I rescued a couple of tiny tips, and I put them on frags, and I put them on the top of my tank now, getting about 200 par, and ever since then, it's actually been growing really well. It's been encrusting and branching out, and the color is finally what it's supposed to be. It's like I'm seeing the purple and the fluorescent green polyps. So it's good that I didn't give up on that coral. Another new coral that I got is this green secal. I got this a few months ago. I put it on the top shelf, and it's getting about 250 par, and it's been encrusting. I haven't seen vertical growth yet, but it's been encrusting really well. All right, shockaholic. This is sometimes called habanero. This is a fun coral. It's very like fluorescent green yellow, very very bright, but it's a bit sensitive. So it's been growing decent. It's I would call this a medium growth coral. It's getting about 300 par. It's been the colors come and go, and it's often one of the first corals in my tank to change in color whenever my chemistry parameters fluctuates. So you see, we had like a browning out event in last September 2017, where the coral just went brown, and it recovered, and the often the color changes are not influencing how fast the coral is growing. And then it started getting back those lovely kind of fluorescent green yellow color again. But then just very recently, I had an alkalinity swing, and you'll notice in the next few pictures that it's starting to kind of brown out a little bit. It's still brown now. Actually, it looks pretty bad. But hopefully we'll recover. You see here how brown it is. Okay, what's next? Cali Blue Tort. Okay, so this is one of my first corals in my tank as well. I got it as a small frag. It quickly shot up. So the growth pattern for the first year was just vertical. It kept getting taller and taller, but very little encrusting. I was actually a little bit worried. And eventually, though, after it got to be about maybe 5 inches tall, it stopped getting taller, and then it started to really base out. So this is a very kind of unusual pattern of growth for me, because most of my other corals often will base out first and then go vertical. But this one, it was all vertical up until like December 2017, and now you started to see more growth on the base. And you see more side branches coming out from the bottom of the tank. So about now we're getting to have like 5 or 6 1-inch branches sticking around the coral, and it's starting to actually like look like a colony as opposed to just a really tall frag. But amazing blue colors. All right, now I'm gonna shift through some of like the slower growing acros. This is Reef Raft Orange Passion. I have it in the top shelf, getting about 300 par. The colors are amazing on this coral. It always has good colors, and it's pretty like stable in terms of like the colors don't change depending on water chemistry that much. But I would say it's a medium growth coral, possibly a little bit slow. It might have maybe doubled in size in about a year, but nowhere near the same growth that I saw with my Miyagi or the Cali Blue or the Pink Cadillac. which is kind of a shame because it's a beautiful coral, and I would like to see it look bigger. It's got green base, blue tips, and the orange yellow polyps that the coral is named after. And so, so this is November 14, and it's still pretty small, right? Like it's maybe double the size in about a year. Now I'm starting over the past 3 months. I'm starting to see more branching out. So I think the coral is due for like a growth spurt right now, but definitely one of my slower growing corals. All right, my Aura Red Planet. This coral again was added very early on to the tank. It's getting about 230, 240 par. This coral has typically has in low lights it tends to have a green fluorescent base and red tips and polyps, and in high light it turns all red. So right now it's it's in 250, so it's still showing some of the green colors. It's been so I can't really say that it's been a slow growing coral because it has been growing really quickly, but most of the growth has been just basing out. So over the past 2 years, literally the colony has maybe increased in size from the frag to about 5 inches by 5 inches. But there has been little or almost no vertical growth. There's tiny branches that are sticking out from the base, but mostly all of the growth has been basing out. It's like literally taking over that top shelf rock that I have it in. So I'm looking forward to having it spread and actually grow vertically, but I haven't seen it yet. All right, ORA Blue Voodoo. This has been one of my slower growing tank, which is slowest growing frags. I got it as a 1-inch frag. I put it on the top shelf. It's right now getting about 300, 325 par. It's been frustrating to watch because the coral itself has really amazing colors, and I just wanted to kind of grow up and fill the tank. But this coral just spent a year basing out, or maybe a little bit over a year, as you see from the picture, right? There's no vertical growth, and it's just been basing out and basing out and basing out and basing out. But somewhere around, I think September of last year, or maybe July, I think it's July, August, we're starting to see a little bit more branches, and then from then on, I've been seeing lots of vertical growth. And as well as lots of horizontal growth by encrusting on the rocks. So it took a while to take off. It took about a year for this colony to take off, but finally we're getting to a place where I feel like it's going to fill up some space pretty soon. It's growing underneath of the Miyagi Tort. I actually had to cut a big chunk of the Miyagi Tort just to give it more light. The colors don't do it justice here, but here's a top-down picture, and the colors are amazing. Lovely blues. I got a sunset MILLIPORA about a year ago, and this has been very slow growing for me. It's getting about 220 par right now on the top shelf, but you could see that it's very slow to encrust. Like if you look at the it took about 6 months for it to just encrust the frag plug, and very little upward growth. The colors are there, right? You see the oranges, you see the greens that are typical of the sunset MILLIPORA, but the frag is just not getting any bigger. So I'm debating about whether I'm tempted to move it to another place to see whether it's gonna improve. Okay, finally, one of my slowest growing coral is this cold water ACRO. It's supposed to have green, a metallic green base and pink polyps. I mounted it on the near the bottom of the tank, and it's getting about 105 par. So it's not highlighting, but I thought I put it in that place because it's meant to be a low light Acropora, a deep water Acropora. It hasn't been, the frag hasn't been getting any taller, but it certainly has been encrusting. This is another sensitive coral where it browns out every time anything changes, the water chemistry changes. So you'll see in the pictures that it goes from like green to brown to green to brown again. And right now it's green, but who knows? I don't know whether the coral hasn't been getting any taller because the light is just not sufficient there. So it'll be interesting to keep an eye on this as I increase PAR in my tank. But it's definitely it's been one of my slowest growing corals. Okay guys, that's it. Thank you for watching, and if you have any comments or any questions, please leave them below, and like and subscribe. Thank you so much, and see you around.